Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to talk about decorators in Python, so let's get started. Now, as you probably already know, Python allows you to put functions inside of functions. So you can basically return a function inside of another function. Now, let me give you an example of this. So I'm going to create a function called Decorator. And then inside of that function, I'm going to create another function called wrapper. And this is going to be called wrapper because it is inside of another function. Inside of wrapper, I'm just going to print wrapper like so. And then what the decorator function is going to do is it's going to return the wrapper function like so. So basically what this does is I've created a function called decorator, which has another function inside called wrapper, which prints wrapper, and then the decorator function is going to return the wrapper function. So now if I call this decorator and I run that, you can see that this is going to print wrapper, which is this print statement right here. Now, you don't have to put parentheses here. You can take them out. Now, what's the difference between having the parentheses and not having them? Well, when you have the parentheses, what's going to happen is the wrapper function is going to be executed and then it's going to be returned. If you don't have the parentheses, then the wrapper function isn't going to be executed. It's just going to be returned and then you have to execute it manually. Now, how do you do this? Well, instead of just calling decorator, you can assign the call of the decorator function to a variable. So for example, func equals decorator, and then you have to call that variable as if it was a function of its own. So now if I run this, you can see that this is exactly the same as what I did before. So if you don't have the parentheses, then the wrapper function isn't going to be executed, but it's going to be returned by the decorator function. So when you say func equals decorator, you're returning the wrapper function, and then when you're calling func, you're executing the wrapper function, and wrapper is going to be printed. Okay, now a decorator is a function that takes in a function as an argument, and then it adds some kind of functionality to that function, and then it returns that function with the added functionality. So to actually turn the decorator function into a decorator, I have to add one parameter, which is going to be function, and this is actually going to be a function. And then inside of my wrapper, I'm going to return that function like so, and then I'm going to return wrapper. Now, since decorator takes in a function as a parameter, I have to create a function to pass in as an argument when I call that function. So let me just do that really quickly. Let's define a function called hi. It isn't going to take in any parameters. It is just going to print hi. Now I'm going to pass in that function hi into my decorator function, and I'm going to call func. So now if I run this, you can see, oops, return function none-type is not callable. Let me just remove the parentheses. Okay, that's better. So this is going to print hi. So basically what this does is I've created a decorator called decorator, which is going to take in a function. In this case, it's going to take in the function hi, which prints hi. Very simple function. And then inside of my decorator, I've created a wrapper function which returns the function that I pass in as an argument. And then the decorator function is going to be returning the wrapper function. So as I explained previously, we don't have the parentheses, so the wrapper function isn't going to be executed. It's just going to be returned, and so we have to execute it manually by assigning the variable func to calling the decorator function with the function hi as a parameter, and then we have to call the func variable. And when we do that, it prints hi. So this is going to be our decorator. Now, of course, you're not used to seeing a decorator like this. You're used to seeing it with the at sign, right? So if you say at and then decorator, decorator, this is going to decorate the hi function with the function decorator. So with our decorator. So when you use this syntax, you actually don't have to write all of this. But now before I delete this, let me just explain something that I think wasn't clear. So the reason this error occurred is because I put the parentheses in this function right here. Now what I'm doing here is I'm calling this function, and then down here I'm calling the function again because I put the parentheses. So if I want to put the parentheses up there, I have to delete the parentheses down here because this is going to be automatically called. And if I don't want to put parentheses up here, I have to put down here, and this is going to be called. So I hope that wasn't confusing. Okay, so now let me delete that and let me add the parentheses because I actually want to call the function automatically. And now what I have to do is I just have to call the function hi. So if I run this, you can see that it prints hi. Now what happened here is the decorator was automatically called in the background. Now this is hard to visualize because the function hi only prints hi, and there's nothing that can show us that the decorator function is working. So let me add some random print statement in here. Let's say wrapper. And now let me run this again. And as you can see, this is going to print wrapper and hi. So as you can see, when you call the function hi, the decorator is automatically called, and that's why it's going to print wrapper and then it's going to print hi. But now, what if you wanted to add a parameter into your decorated function? So in this case, into your hi function. So let me say message, and now instead of printing this, I'm going to print message, and then the message is going to be hi. So if I run this, you can see that it says type error, wrapper takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. So what does this mean? Basically, the wrapper function isn't expecting me to pass in any parameters into my function or to pass in any arguments into my function. So I have to actually specify that I want to do that. I have to add that functionality to my wrapper function. And so to do that, I'm going to write star args and then 2 stars kw args. And I have to pass this as well to my function. So inside of here, so basically, args and kw args are conventional names. You can actually name these parameters whatever you want, but args basically allows me to give my function any number of positional arguments that I want, and kw args allows me to pass in any number of keyword arguments to my function. So now if I run this, you can see that everything works correctly. So that's going to print wrapper and hi. Now you don't have to pass in any parameters into your function. So if I do that and I print that, you can see that everything works correctly. So args and kw args allow you to add any number of keyword or positional arguments that you want, but you don't have to. Now you can actually create classes as decorators instead of creating functions. So you'd write class and then decorator. And then I'm going to define the initialization method. So init, I'm going to pass in self and our function. And then self.function is going to equal function, function, like so. And then I'm going to define another dunder method, which is going to be call. This is going to take in self, and then it's going to take the args and the kw args, like so. And then I want this to return self dot function, and then inside of here I'm going to pass in the args and kw args. Let me copy that and paste it right there. And now let me decorate my hi function with the decorator class. And now if I run this, you can see that everything works correctly. So it's going to say hi. Let me add that print statement. So let's say print call method, like so. And now let me run that, and you can see that it says call method and then hi. So you can see that everything works correctly. So now that you know what a decorator is, I'm going to give you a concrete example of when to use a decorator. So decorators are especially useful when you're debugging. So if you want to implement logging into your program, they're very useful. If you know that something is slowing down your program and you don't know what, then you can use a decorator to print a time, so a time in which a function runs, and then you can see if that function is slowing down your program. So that's what I'm going to teach you to do. Now I'm just going to import time first of all, and then I'm going to define my decorator, which is going to be called timer. This is going to take in a function. And then inside of here, I'm going to define my wrapper, which is going to take in the args and kw args, like so. And then I want to create a variable called time1, which is going to equal time.time. So this is going to be the starting time, and then call is going to equal calling the function with the args and the kw args, like so. And then time2 is going to equal time.time again minus time1. So basically time2 is going to be time.time, so the time that it took to call this function minus the starting time. And then I want to print, I want to print an f string that says took time2 to run. Let's add seconds. Took time2 seconds to run, like so. And then I want to return call, so return calling the function, and then I want to return wrapper. Return wrapper, like so. So now I'm going to create a function. I was just going to be hello, I don't know, just something random. And then I'm going to say for I in range 500, 600, I'm going to print I, and let me decorate this function with my timer. And then let me call this function, so hello, and okay. So now if I run this, let me just pull this up. You can see that this is going to print every number from 0 to 599, and then it's going to say took 0.7 seconds to run. So with this method of using a decorator, you can see if the function is slowing down your program, and that can help you with debugging. And I think that's it for today. That's all I had to show you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you learned something, if this was helpful to you, please like and subscribe to support the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.